Hey there folks, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Hasbro Marvel Legends Japanese Spider-Man. So without further ado, let's get into it. Alright guys, so let's take a closer look at the accessories before we go ahead and take a look at the figure. So I'll move him out of the way. Some of the accessories that you get are an alternate pair of hands. Actually, I believe these are the ones that are on him in the package, but here's your more relaxed hands. These are pretty cool. I like these. I got a set of these with my Peter and Ed 2-pack. I like these more relaxed hands. It gives you some more options. Unfortunately, due to the... I apologize for my fingers being a little bit rough. Was working with some dirt today, so I apologize that I tried to get it all out. But as far as the hands go, there's a little bit of a color discrepancy with this figure. So if that wasn't the case, then it would have been kind of cool to be able to use these for other figures, but unfortunately you won't be able to do that because as you can see, this figure is much more of an orangish red, which is an issue with the figure in and of itself. But yeah, that's a little bit disappointing because if the figure was more closer to this color like it should have been, then you would have been able to use these for a lot more Spider-Man figures. So that's a little bit unfortunate. But he also comes with a pair of fist hands in the package, and we'll take a look at his bracelet when we get to the figure. But the more relaxed hands are pretty cool. You also get a set of web effects, and this one's got a little hole in it if you want to place a web through it, or you can. I've seen some people plug out the hands and put them in the hands, but I don't really like that. But you can do some things with it. I've done some things like this for some of my own pictures that I've tried working on. It's using these ones to kind of clamp underneath the chin to kind of hold it on their chest. If that's something you want to do. I don't know, but they're okay. I mean, it's not anything I'm going to use too much, but it works. And then you also get this more long thwipping web that we've seen quite a few times in the last decade. So yeah, you get that. Unfortunately, there's another inaccuracy here. These aren't really supposed to be webs. They're supposed to be like ropes and nets. So I'm not personally that bothered by it, because if you watch my unboxing video, then you know that I don't actually plan on using this figure as I shook that way too much. I don't plan on using this figure as a Japanese Spider-Man. I plan on using this Spider-Man as more of like a early days Peter Parker Spider-Man. Because to me, this figure looks like the original costume kind of brought into the real world. Now the SH Figuarts figure looks much more like that. It has the gloves sculpted and the boots sculpted and the webs are sculpted. So that figure much more looks like the classic costume brought into the real world. There's no modernization, there's no 3D pieces, none of that. It looks like the original costume brought in the real world. And this one still kind of has that effect because it has the more wrinkly mask, and the suit isn't super tight, and it's got some wrinkles throughout. So this to me looks like the classic Steve Ditko design with a bit of a realistic touch to it. So that's kind of why I like it. I don't plan on displaying this as a Japanese Spider-Man, so things like this where the webbing is a little less inaccurate doesn't really bother me. So I'm a little bit biased in that sense. However, I am aware of the way that it's supposed to look. So it should have come with more of like a netted style webbing or rope style webbing. And again, the colors are a bit inaccurate as well. The colors should be closer, at least the red should be closer to this. The blue looks like it could be fine, but I think overall it should look closer to the Renew Your Vows colors. But I will say that I appreciate this because it is a little bit different, and it does allow the figure to stand out on the shelf because it has some a different color scheme, a different color palette. But that's it for the accessories, so let's go ahead and take a closer look at the figure. As you can see there, right in the face, he's got some nice silver eyes, and you can see that there's a little bit of a overlap with this eye going across the center of the mask. That is done intentionally. But I think that looks pretty cool. Like I said, with all the wrinkles and stuff, it really just looks like, to me, like it's the original costume brought into the real world. You have the Steve Ditko's kind of spider, again in the back, that kind of noodly spider that you see in a lot of Steve Ditko's, as well as John Romita's artwork. It's before it really started to look like this. But you have that kind of, the round point down there, that's where it kind of makes it look a little less like the original costume, but overall to me this just looks like the original Steve Ditko design with a little bit of a twist to it, but not too much of a twist. You know, like the Sam Raimi costume or the Andrew Garfield costume or the Tom Holland costume, those all have dramatic changes to the original design. As much as like the No Way Home final swimsuit is extremely accurate to the source material, it's not quite the Steve Ditko design. This looks very much like that, because at that point in time it was really the only reference other than John Romita's artwork and the cover of Amazing Fantasy 15, which is Jack Kirby's artwork. So this is really inspired by just those two designs. So that's why I like it so much. But as you can see, they used what I believe is the Reed Richards torso, and then it looks like they gave him some new arms and legs. I personally really like this because, like I said, it doesn't really have a whole lot of muscle definition. It's not overly ripped. He still has some muscle. He's a big dude, and also the figure is pretty big as well, and I'll talk about that more when we get to the size comparisons. But he just looks like a pretty muscular dude, just in a costume that fits like a real costume. You can see the wrinkles down by the knees, the ankles, up at the hips, or towards the crotch, I'd say. And then you get the looseness in the body. You get some of the wrinkles up by the shoulders and by the wrists, and again in the head. I just really like the way that this figure looks. Again, I think the SH Figuarts figure did it better, so I still am on the hunt for that figure, and I'll probably have to pay boatloads of money to get it, but as it stands right now, this is a good stand-in, so I'm happy with this figure overall. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at its articulation. If we pop up the head, you can see right there he has a ball and a hinge. I would go ahead and do some size comparisons, but it's not going to be overly necessary just because there's not really any figure it's going to match with in color. But if you do want to see what a Peter Parker head looks like on there, I'll go ahead and do that later on. But for the articulation, his head goes up this far, which is not too shabby at all. His head goes down as far as I would want it to go anyway. Some side to side, of course, and you do get just a tiny little movement on the, some kind of tilting, not too much. Shoulders go up about horizontally. Full rotation, and it is a bit ratcheted. I like that. Some bicep swivel, double jointed knees, or elbows, and the wrist rotation and hinge, and that's the same for both hands. And we actually forgot to take a little look at this gauntlet right here. As you can see there, it says Spider-Man, and it's got some nice paintwork on it. The SH Figuarts one can like open up and stuff like that, so I don't expect to see that from Marvel Legends, but it still looks pretty good overall. But as far as I'm concerned, I don't want it on there. I'm sorry, but this for me is just a classic Spidey. That's all I care about. But anyway, back to the ab crunch. He's got, one click. You can kind of, I guess that counts as two. But you can go about that far down and one click back. Not even actually, it's not even a full click, but he can go back that far. Waist swivel. His legs can go out about that far. Kicks forward about straight out. A little bit back. Thigh swivel. Double jointed knees. And the ankles move down that far. Move up pretty far. And he's also got an ankle pivot. And one thing I noticed with my figure, and this happens to me all the time, and it's very frustrating. If you'll notice, this figure is, for the most part, pointed down. It kicks out a little bit at the bottom, but for this one, it kicks out like really far. You can see that it's kind of like, it's not angled right. If you see that, the foot, actually it looks kind of the same for both of them. but it's definitely worse on this one. You'll see that the hinge, let me move in right here. The left side of the hinge is completely lined up with the middle of the webbing. As you can see that for the most part the middle of the hinge is lined up with the middle of the webbing. And you can see that the webbing kicks out, the whole foot kicks out. So it makes it like he's got, I forget what kind of stance that's called. Like pigeon-toed or something. I think pigeon-toed is when your feet are pointed in though. But some weird shit like that. But anyway, it's not super noticeable though, but it kind of, I don't know, it kind of looks weird to me. But anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at some size comparisons. Okay, so for our first size comparison, here he is compared to a few other live-action Spider-Mans. On the left, you have the Walmart exclusive No Way Home Spider-Man with a Peter and Ned 2-pack head and Miles Morales hands. And on the right, you have the Figma Amazing Spider-Man. Here on the left, you have the Pizza Spider-Man, and on the right, you have the Renew Your Vows Spider-Man. On the left, you have the classic costume Mafex Spider-Man, and on the right, you have the Mafex black costume Spider-Man. And for the last size comparison, of course, you have the face-off cap and the modular Iron Man, so you get a good look at what he looks like compared to some modern-day Marvel Legends, and on the left would give you an old-school Marvel Legends vibe. Now, I did want to mention, for his height, he's pretty tall, and the guy that played him was actually 6 foot. And if you stand him next to a regular Marvel Legends movie cap, he's roughly the same height. So for the most part, he fits in scale. But obviously, most people would prefer their Spider-Mans to be a little bit shorter. But he is accurate to his real life counterpart. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and wrap this video up. All right, guys. So wrapping it up. My overall thoughts are that I think this figure is overall pretty good. Like I said throughout the video, that I have different intentions for this figure than for what it was intended for. So for me, some of its flaws are I'm a little bit more lenient on those flaws. But overall, I still think it's a really good figure, and I think it comes with some cool accessories, and it gives some options for your display, some diversity, in the sense that he looks a little bit different than some of the other Spider-Mans that we get from Marvel Legends. So even if you don't necessarily want to use him as the Japanese Spider-Man similar to myself, he still looks pretty cool on the shelf. So with that in mind, I think this figure is pretty good, and I would recommend it despite some of its issues. So with all that being said, if you guys liked the video, hit the like button, subscribe, notification bell. All that would be greatly appreciated if you decide to do so. And of course, until next time, true believers.